Welcome back to the Forest of Magic. It's a bit different this time. One last message. Do what you do best. And, so, this is the Forest of Magic. Round 2. It's back to Danmaku Demons, because, I mean, of course. And so far, yeah, there isn't too much to talk about. Aside from the notable fact that, as you may have noticed, the Danmaku enemies preserve their functionality. We're Danmaku demons. They work the same way they did the first time you met them in Old Hell. That's deliberate, because they're demons. They're not like generic stage enemies. They're the Doomed Bestiary, but Danmakuified. And as a result, I wanted to make sure their functions were more distinct. Thus, they retain their functionality across maps. So, these are the dolls. They are actually allied with you, though bear in mind they can still hurt you. At each phase of this, these dolls will be able to help you. Secret one. Yeah, whoops. Whew. That's what you get for shooting at me. And yeah, you can't just hide and let them do it, but I like watching the chaos unfold, so... I like chaos, so... But as a result, though... Oh, I guess I went up here at some point. Okay, one note. The Revenants are kind of dangerous, because they have the ability to shoot homing missiles, and that means they have the ability to gather stacks of homing missiles if you let one go too long. That's actually the only death I've had so far. This is my 4th attempt, but three of those were not because I died, just because I feel I could commentate it better. So if I can commentate it better, I'm going to re-record, because there is a lot to commentate in this map. Because one of the bosses is somewhat uniquely difficult to commentate. Not because I don't like her or anything, it's quite the opposite. I have just too much to commentate, but I want to get through all of it because it's hilarious, and I want to be able to get the value out of it. Okay, this map wasn't too hard to construct for the most part. The construction of the map was basically copy-pasting trees and sometimes rotating them a bit. But otherwise, it was pretty generic. This did actually, for some reason, start taking a long time to save, though. Doom Builder did not like saving the maps of this size, which got kind of annoying because the map's large and I kind of needed it to save. So the map construction wasn't too much of a pain. No, the hard part of this map was, well, you've met the main gimmick, which is the Doll Demon War. Doom Monster AI, as I mentioned in Sakuya's fight, because it was also relevant there, is an inflexible nightmare. The biggest problem was basically that, as much as I could get the two to fight, I couldn't get them to do so while retaining their initial behaviors. What do I mean? Monsters, if the monsters manipulated via a thing hate call, they will lose the capacity to infight. And I wanted them to be able to still infight with each other. Luckily, I realized that it really only needed the dolls to be the aggressors, because the demons will retaliate if they're shot. But still, getting the dolls... there's also a lot of TID manipulation to ensure that each group of dolls and demons was in a fight with each other. And there's one last pro tip, which is to make sure everything's dead before you exit the level. I'm going to let them play that out. Whoops. Oh, and yeah, the dolls do hurt you, so make sure you're avoiding them just as much as you. There is a reason to kill all of them, and that's because they stop being as friendly when you begin the boss fight. So the gateway, the forest gateway has already been destroyed. That is due to is not actually due to the boss in front of us. That is entirely due to, apparently, a friend of hers. And 2 imps were not killed. I'll worry about that later. Alright, so I'm going to switch to Illusion Laser, because you want to be able to kill both the dolls and the or Magic Missile. You want to be able to kill both the dolls and the and damage Alice at the same time, because Alice, as you could probably guess from the gimmick leading in the stage, the main gimmick is that Alice summons these dolls. Okay, this card is for the most part aimed at you. It's not as precisely aimed at you, so it's harder to stream it, but you can just stream it like this. So yeah, you can just sidestep it like that. Also, a little note, you might get clever and think, can't I just run away from Alice and time her out because her dolls don't move that fast? No, you can't. I like to call those the Nothing Personal Kid dolls, but they're called Hunter dolls in the code, and yeah, basically Alice summons them anytime you get out of sight, kind of as revenge for trying to cheese the fight. They are by far the worst kind of doll. They move at hyperspeed, but only while you're not looking at them. So finally, we have Soulless Folk Dance. This one you just want to get a lot of space for. But otherwise, yeah. So fun fact, that's actually mid-boss Alice, not boss Alice. And as a result, after the fight, she leaves you with this rather large army of dolls, which arguably is one of the harder parts of the map if you don't have a plan for this. Other than use Marisa's weapons because they can hit multiple targets. Hekaro Fire is not very effective against these things because despite its ripping properties, these things are just too small to get good ripper mileage out of. 857 out of 857, so great. I've gotten all monsters. All items, all secrets. So, onwards to the boss fight. So, if you've played Touhou Doom, you already know who this is. But yes, it's time for the Marisa Kirisame. I love this fight. This was one of the best fights. I had so much fun designing this fight, and when I got to Marisa, I knew that this was going to be a real blast. I think I want to mention the writing process, though, a lot more than most of the boss, because the writing process was hilarious. I've mentioned that I've always tried to keep everyone in character, well, except Koishi because fourth wall breakage, but Marisa I didn't really try to keep in character, and that's how I kept her in character. And what I mean by that is that basically, Marisa is fighting you for completely insane troll logic reasons. But given that like half the reasons she participates in the actual games as a player character is that she's bored, that's not. It's just an excuse. She wants to fight you. And though the reason she explicitly gives is that she's mad over the fact that you stole the Hekaro, which is what's powering this weapon. Now you might argue that you didn't really steal it, you just had it given to you. Marisa points this out, says it's even worse, which makes no sense whatsoever, but it's Marisa. Of course it doesn't make any sense. Okay, this card I want to mention, because actually, this was, actually remarkably hard to design. Because I needed to make it so these orbs was what actually shot the bullets. And that was actually not the easiest thing to set up. I'm using Homing Amulet because that gives me the most time to explain since it's the weakest weapon over. These lasers can be sidestepped. She's not really... And Marisa, much like some previous, like Sane's second and third non-spells, has a grab bag of attacks. This build card's called Milky Way on easy or normal, and I'll point it out that again later in about 12 maps from now on Extra Story. But I've never understood why Asteroid Belt would be the upgraded version of Milky Way, but that's Zune for you. But yeah. The theme currently playing is Love Colored Master Spark from Touhou 8. It's a remix of her most signature theme, Love Colored Magic. And I kind of knew I wanted to use it because it's kind of her most signature theme. So the Hikaru is one of a kind, which is why, to use the canonically, for those who don't know Touhou, Marisa needs the Hikaru to use this attack, which you're seeing right now. You might be wondering, didn't you have that? Yep, you still do, in fact. You forced Marisa to take out her backup Hikaru. You might say, isn't it not one of a kind if... You might say, isn't the one of a kind artifact not one of a kind if there's a backup of it? Well, yes. I completely violated canon. There is no excuse for it. Also, fun fact. Also, so this is the first timeout card that is not an extra stage boss. So, yeah, it's 30 seconds on hard and 60 seconds on lunatic. Otherwise, I think it's identical. And you might notice these stars aren't disappearing. Yeah, that's because this timeout gets harder as it progresses because you have to start dodging the stars that have been left behind from Marisa's previous iterations. You also have to make sure to dodge the giant laser, because that kind of kills you. If the giant laser hits you, that kind of kills you. This is actually one of the worst blazing stars I've gotten. Oh my god. The star layout's actually terrible. I can't dodge anything. Okay, it's not going to reach me in 2 seconds. Okay, that was a bit closer than it should have been. Okay. Big freaking Spark 9000. This is the most ridiculous thing I have ever made, and I love it. There's no reason this card should exist, and that's why it has to exist. All the bouncing plasma is a reference to both the plasma gun and the BFG 270 and the beta version of the BFG 9000. The way this card works is that she fires the BFG E-ball, and then she'll fire the spark in the direction that she fired the BFG ball. Once it makes contact with, well, once it explodes. This is a reference to how the BFG 9000 works in Doom. And if you want to know how that works, you really just have to look up by somebody who actually knows how to use that weapon. But the thing is that Marisa, is just re-replicating the BFG 9000 manually by firing a Master Spark in the direction she fires the BFG ball. As well as the giant plasma spray. That's works very much the same way. It's sprayed out in the direction that the sparks fired in. It's such a ridiculous card. It has no reason to exist, and that's why it has to exist. Canonically, this fight makes no sense whatsoever. Marisa tends to not make sense like that. So, and yeah, the thing is that Marisa has a habit in a lot of her games of just violating what she should be able to know with no actual discernible reason why she knows this. And as a result, it's remarkably in character for her to just violate canon not once but twice. First with the backup Hekaro, because the Hekaro is a one-of-a-kind artifact, so, well. And the second is BFS, Big Freaking Spark 9000. Because, again, that card, as you can probably guess, is something I made up. It's not a canon spell card. But I love it. This fight, unlike the stage where I had to manipulate the monster AI and that was a giant nightmare, really actually came together. And that's something that I'm relatively happy with. This next up is the reason why this theme is playing. And that is Raimo. I think Raimo's fight's something I've been looking forward to for a while. But yeah, Marisa was a ridiculous fight, and I absolutely love it.